Well, hey, welcome back. This is Dave Dubeau, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about what does OPM mean in real estate and how can we use it to go out and buy more properties. All right, on today's episode, we're going to be covering OPM in great depth. First of all, what is OPM? Is a bank, does that count as OPM? How do we get non-bank OPM? And where do we look for it? And how do we attract it? That's what we'll be talking about now. All right, so what exactly is OPM? Chances are you've heard the term thrown around left, right, and center. And it's very, very simple. OPM stands for other people's money. So when you're investing in real estate, a lot of people get started by using their own money. They self-finance their deals. And that's great. That's a great way to get started. But sooner or later, you're going to hit the wall. You're going to run out of cash. You're going to run out of credit. And you got two choices. You can get stuck and stalled and quit buying more properties, or you can start looking at how to leverage other people's money and perhaps other people's credit to grow your portfolio. Now, some people say, well, Dave, if a bank is financing your property, isn't that OPM? And yes and no. I'm not really talking about bank financing as OPM. It is because, again, if you're getting traditional financing for a revenue property, chances are you have to come up with 20% of the value of the property, and the bank is going to finance 80% of the value of the property. That's huge. That is massive leverage. That is using the bank's money to buy that property. They're putting in 80% of the money. So for example, a $500,000 property, you'd have to come up with $100,000. The bank would finance $400,000. That's definitely leveraging other people's money. But what I'm talking about with other people's money is that initial 100 grand or whatever it is that you need to buy that property, whatever the non-bank financing that's required, the non-bank money that's required to do the deal. To me, that's really what OPM means when we're talking about investment properties. So what does OPM look like when we're buying these kind of revenue properties? Well, we can use OPM for the down payment on a property. So we talked about the example of coming up with $100,000 for 20% down on a $500,000 property. But there's also other expenses that are involved. There's closing costs, property transfer taxes, etc. We might need to use investor money, other people's money for that. And then there might also be renovation costs. So for example, if you're doing a BRRRR deal, or if you're doing a flip, or if you're buying a multifamily property that needs to be upgraded, you're going to need to come up with cash to do those upgrades, to do those renovations. And you can either come up with that yourself, or again, you can tap into other people's money for that as well. So the next question people have is, okay, Dave, I get the concept of other people's money. Now, where do I get it? Who do I approach? How do I go about finding this magical OPM? Well, really, there are two categories of OPM as far as I'm concerned. There is OPM in the sense of people that you already know, and there's strangers. So there's insiders and there's outsiders. Now, who are the insiders? Insiders for me are people that you have a pre-existing relationship with. So your family members, your friends, your co-workers, business associates. If you're self-employed, it could be customers and clients, people you know from church, civic organizations, sporting clubs, what have you. You know them and they know you. You have a pre-existing relationship with these people. They already know you. They already like you to a certain degree. They already trust you. That's what insiders are. Now, outsiders. Who are outsiders? Outsiders is everybody else, right? Strangers. You don't know them. You don't have a pre-existing relationship with these folks, okay? Now, there's pros and cons to both. So one of the pros to working with outsiders is there are a lot more of them, right? There are about 8 billion people on planet Earth. Chances are you only have a solid connection with about 200 of those people, 150 to 200 of them. There's a lot more people you don't know than people that you do know, but it's still a challenge. I'm going to suggest you want to focus on insiders for 3 reasons. Reason number 1 is it's the easiest money you're going to be able to get a hold of. It's the easiest OPM you're going to access. Why? Because These folks already know you, they already like you, and they already trust you to a certain degree, right? You've already got that relationship. If you're trying to convince a stranger to invest with you in a deal, they don't know you, they don't like you, they certainly don't trust you with their $50, $75, or $100,000. So that's starting from scratch. Very, very difficult thing to do. Okay. The second reason I really love working with insiders is that it is the safest capital you can go after. Now, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a securities expert, I'm a real estate guy and a marketer, but here's my understanding. It's illegal for you and I, as a mom and pop real estate investor, to raise money or solicit capital from strangers. If you're in the States, you've got this little thing called the Securities and Exchange Commission. Each state has its own governing authority. In Canada, each province has its own regulatory authority for securities, and they all are nasty, and they all basically say, hey, you as a mom and pop real estate investor are not allowed. It's illegal for you to raise capital from the general public unless you've got a license to do it. So if you've got a stockbroker's license, or if you're a financial planner, or in certain cases, if you're a mortgage broker, then yeah, you can do that. Typically, these are people that work for big companies, big banks, big financial institutions. Or if you're set up with a certain corporate structure and you've got exemptions and you've set up things like 506Bs and 506Cs with the Securities and Exchange Commission, again, tends to be very expensive and cumbersome and time consuming. If you're doing just a little type deal, it doesn't really make much sense. Or if you've got an offering memorandum, same thing. These tend to be for much, much bigger deals. So, safest capital you can go after is after your existing connections, because there's usually an exemption there. You are allowed to bring close friends and family members and connections on board as joint venture partners for your deals typically. Again, get the proper legal and financial counsel. I'm not a lawyer or a security special. I'm just saying my understanding of things, okay? And then third big reason is it's typically the fastest capital you're going to get a hold of, right? Because you don't need to start a whole relationship from scratch. If you get the word out in the right way, this is the fastest capital you're going to raise. So it's the fastest, it's the safest, it's the easiest capital you can raise by focusing on insiders instead of outsiders. Are you finding this kind of stuff helpful? If so, go ahead, click on the subscribe link and then on the bell to get notified each time we got a new video for you. Now I got a great example of focusing on insiders versus outsiders here for you. And this is our clients, Lea and Lefry. I love these guys. They're a young couple. They're both working, very, very hard workers, originally from the Philippines, moved here a number of years ago. They've got a young family. They got a baby boy. And Lea is a nurse and Lefry works in the catering industry. And they both decided they wanted to get involved in real estate. So they're working together as a team. And like many people, they got started doing pre-construction condo deals. So basically, somebody would be building up a new condo building. They could put in a relatively small deposit in on that. And after a couple of years, once the building was built, before they actually had to close on the deal, they would sell their contract and make a nice little profit. So they did a couple of those under their own steam, but then they said, you know what, we want to start getting into cash flowing properties and really create some income for ourselves and our family moving ahead. But they didn't know how to do that. So we started working with them. We showed them this whole money partner formula process, and they really, really laser focused in on their existing network of connections. And they went great guns. They very, very quickly raised several $100,000. They got into their first long-term buy and hold property. Then they kept going. They started getting into bigger deals. They started doing BRRRRs. So those are buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat type deals. They started doing that with joint venture partners, focusing on their existing network. And they really got things dialed in. They have scaled up their portfolio to an incredible degree in a very short period of time by laser focusing in on their existing network, their insiders as ideal joint venture partners, and to be able to leverage other people's money. And you can do the same thing. All right, speaking of OPM, if you're looking to access other people's money, you're going to have to bring on joint venture partners or investors. If you want a proven way to do that, then go ahead and grab a free copy of my book. It's called Money Partner Formula. And that's exactly what it is. It's a formula for you to attract investors and raise capital without having to chase people, without having to cold call people, without having to come across as desperate or needy. In fact, I'm going to show you step by step how to attract investors to you, how to get them to self-identify, how to get them to come to you already pre-educated, pre-motivated, and predisposed to invest in your deals. And when you follow this, you're going to have access to all the OPM you need to buy as many properties as you want. You can click on the link in the description below or go to investorattractionbook.com right now to get your copy.